Welcome to I Heart Geek.
And welcome to another episode of I Heart Geek. We have an especially well-read group today, I think. We are doing.
Because I've got giant bookcases behind me.
I got some like right back there. You can see it. It's mostly
yes,
comic
and these
books.
are all the books that I've read.
That's why we have Kindles now and other devices. Now, before we get into this, we are doing books that are movies that were originally books, and what the good stuff and the bad stuff. And wow, when they get it wrong, they really get it wrong. And that's going to be a fun discussion. Today's show is brought to you by the paper industry saying, please start buying books again. Please, 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 please. Because I think that's a thing. I'm Dub and I do stuff, and I'm here with the voice of the show, Todd Harvey. I'm here with Mr. Blythe, the behind the scenes guy, and I'm here with Miss Courtney, who is just freaking awesome. How are y'all doing today? Y'all getting excited about this topic?
Yeah, it's a good
Absolutely.
one.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So I'm curious on what kind of research everyone was doing on this, because I think I think we all kind of looked at this in a different way coming onto the show. So I'm kind of curious on what kind of was your criteria for the book to movie thing. I decided to allow comic books in the last minute, even though most comic book movies aren't as good as the original comic. So,
well, Dub, let's be serious. You were thinking more along the lines of graphic novels.
No, I'm thinking comic books, the funny books.
Really?
Oh yeah, Green Lantern in general is, but we were not talking about that movie.
And did Green Lantern make your list of 5 best movies?
No. You just made me so sad.
You know what? The only reason he allowed that is because one of the ones on his top 5
is a comic book.
Yeah.
No, that one is actually a graphic novel, and it's one of my favorite movies.
Reason, listeners, right there.
He couldn't think of a 5th one, so he had to throw in comic books.
That's not true at all. But I will let me say this I think that we do need to have a more of a reverence for the graphic novel as actual literature, and I think that's when we separate it out. I think we're not doing the comic industry, the stuff that we all love, any favors.
Yeah, well, I'm a speed reader, so I mean, large books I eat in vast quantities. The graphic novels actually make me slow down in order to digest the imagery.
Yeah.
So I'm totally with your point of view on that.
Now, Courtney, I want to ask you this. I heard this years ago, and we're kind of off topic, but I had a female friend of mine said that they can't enjoy the graphic novels. They read The Watchmen, because speaking of books to movies, because they wanted to read it before the movie came out, which I thought it was good. I'll give it some grace on most of it. She said that girls don't process the image with the dialogue as well as guys do. And I know that's not true with everybody, but do you think that's a thing, and that's why there's less female comic readers?
No.
Or is it because comic book nerds are skeevy?
No.
However, point number 2 has validity.
Right. We've talked about this before. It's not so bad anymore, which is really nice. But I mean, like when I was growing up and the generation before us, it was always, well, girls didn't really read comic books because that wasn't supposed to be their thing. Like we didn't play baseball, we didn't play football. We had guy things and girl things, and now it's just kind of, we have things.
Yeah. And
anybody can enjoy it. So I could see why it might be a situation for an older generation where, well, I don't read graphic novels. I know that I didn't start reading graphic novels until I was probably in my 20s and my 30s, and my cousins were giving me graphic novels, but I read comic books before. So I'm not sure it has anything to do with the imagery. I just think I think in some cases, depending on how old the woman is, it was probably because she was conditioned to believe, well, we're not supposed to enjoy those. But
Fair
that's
enough.
not the case anymore.
Yeah. And it could just be that person as well. That's just kind of how the process is.
Anybody can enjoy them. And graphic novels aren't for everybody, though. Men or women, you'll get people who might try to read it and they're like, oh, I'm not really digging this.
Yeah. Is it bad that we went on a rabbit trail within the first like 5 minutes of the show?
It's kind of a harbinger for how the rest of the show is going to go, I think.
Let's
So,
lighten
okay.
this up.
So let's ask this question: what genre of book usually lends itself best to making a movie? Because we've seen some great ones. We're not going to talk. We'll talk about the bad ones in a minute, but let's talk about the good stuff. What is that? I think spy novels lend themselves very well to becoming
Yeah,
movies.
the entire Bond series was books first. I mean, let's be
Mhm.
serious. Nowadays, with the special effects at such a high level that they are, fantasy is and sci-fi really lend itself well, or
But
can, if the movie's made
again,
correctly.
this is when we got to look at
Yeah.
the story side of it, because you can't just go genre per se, because there's a lot of really bad fantasy out there. Let's be honest.
Yeah. I think it's hard to say if a specific genre will fit a movie
Or fit better
in the
than
best.
others.
I think it is all dependent on how the story is adapted to taking a full-length novel and adapting that to a 2-hour movie.
Exactly
how well
on
that
point.
is done. I don't
A
think
great example of that done wrong: Ender's Game. Superb book, lousy movie.
And
we'll get to why in a minute.
This is what I love about this topic, though. I've never read Ender's Game, but I enjoyed that movie.
You'd love the book, and then you would see what a shabby con the movie was.
Now, that's do we look at it as kind of a hindrance when they make a movie from a book, because people do have that image? Like, I mean, I've heard. I mean, let's look at Cowboys versus Aliens. Okay, that book was literally made as a storyboard for a movie. That's why they put that comic book out, and it was a really fun comic. It did not translate to screen at all.
Mhm.
So,
I'll give you a great example.
I think it would have been better if people wouldn't have read the comic first.
The book It.
Okay.
Fantastic book. One of the best I've ever read. It's just a behemoth of a book. It's a doorstop.
It's like 1,000 pages long.
Yeah, a little bit more. But the fact of the matter is, you take a story that even a speed reader like me, it takes me a good week and a half to polish that book off in heavy reading. And you try to condense that into even a mini movie of 4 hours, it's impossible.
Mm-hmm.
And they failed twice in it now.
So here's let's look at the bad side for a second, because I think this is one of the worst things that you see is, and I'm going to use this particular movie for an example, called Aragon, the Inheritance Cycle. I love the books. I adore the books. You watch and this is when they took, at the time there was 3 huge novels, right? Lots of stuff fleshed out, and they decided to try to put everything from these 3 novels into the one movie, and it just failed.
And still leave it open to try and make a sequel movie.
It was awful.
Yeah.
Now, but the problem with that was they did try to put in too much. Now, if I think the Harry Potter thing finally got it right at the end, when they said, okay, well, we're going to take this and split it into each book into 2 movies, and that's really what you need for most good storytelling. Otherwise, I think that
sometimes that backfires, though, because look at The Hobbit. There was literally no reason to split that into 3 movies.
No, that should have been
one. There was.
This is the reason, Courtney.
Put them all into one movie, and it would have been fine, because there was, The Hobbit's not completely, it's not loaded up like Lord of the Rings is.
Oh.
But like that, I will watch Lord of the Rings over and over and over again. I rarely go back and rewatch The Hobbit.
I never watched it. I watched like the first movie and fell asleep in the theater, and I never went back to it.
Yeah.
Specifically, the Harry Potter, that 7th book that they cut into 2. Do you remember the size of that book? It was enormous.
But the book before it was a lot bigger.
Yeah, but like
the
book 7 was the size of book 1 and 2. It was ridiculous. So in order to put enough plot in to make it a decent movie, they had to split it.
Yeah.
As opposed to The Hobbit, which was just done for monetary gain.
Mm-hmm.
But you look at books that have done this right, like Ready Player One. I think this is a great example because it takes 16 hours to listen to the audiobook of that. They were able to condense it because it was so visual that they were able to tell 10 pages of dialogue in like
just having
minute.
the Iron Giant walk by in the scene. Yeah,
that was like at least 2 pages of dialogue when they talked about it, but you get that in a second, and that's when it's kind of okay, I guess.
It's a valid point.
Yeah. So let me ask this: has there been a movie that is so bad that has actually ruined the book, and has there been a movie that's been so good that you wanted to go back and read the bad book again?
I'm assuming that you don't want me to start off with 50 Shades of Grey.
But were either of those good?
That's a double-edged sword because both of them are terrible.
Yeah. So that doesn't count in this conversation. But has there been a book that's really, or a movie that's been so bad it's ruined the book for you?
No, I don't think so, because you still it almost makes the book better. It makes you appreciate the book more because you see the movie and you're like, man, I'd go rather read this book that took me a week to finish than watch the movie of it that took 2 hours to watch.
You just spiked the cannons on that one, dude. That was exactly the reason that I was thinking of. Yeah. It's hard for anything to ruin a book for me because I know that the book does not change.
Mm-hmm. I can give you an example of a book that I have not read since I watched the movie because the movie was so bad, and that was The Killing Joke, the Batman Killing Joke, which is one of the most epic stories ever told in Batman lore.
Bad.
But the movie was so horrific. I have not been able to watch. I have not been able to read. And I used to read it like about every 6 months. I have not touched it since I watched it.
I watched that movie when it first came out on streaming, and I was really
you texted me when you did,
grievously insulted with how poorly they did that. And after I watched it, I was a little bit of a grumbly bear, but I immediately went to my library, pulled down the graphic novel, and read it again to make sure that I was right in my outrage. And I was.
Yeah. You gotta wash the taste out of your mouth.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
I saw it didn't touch it.
I saw it in theaters, and I just remember being about a few minutes in and being like, what is this?
Big neon sign of WTF over your head.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, so that's the only one I can think of personally that's literally ruined the book. Maybe the Aragon stuff, but I already talked about that.
Yeah, see, when I think of that, I think of the Black Dahlia, the movie The Black Dahlia that had Aaron Eckhart and
that's been on my list to watch forever.
It's awful.
Never mind. Thank you.
Terrible. But it's based on the book The Black Dahlia by James Ellroy, who also wrote LA Confidential and White Jazz and all those things. And it's so bad that Ellroy has said, just read the book. When it comes to LA Confidential, he'll go, you can watch both of them. But he'll it's terrible. It's a mess, but it doesn't stop. I love the book, so it didn't ruin the book for me. It ruined my idea of what the book should have been on screen.
Yeah.
Even when a movie's that bad, you can go back and say at least it's consistently bad.
Yeah.
Silver lining.
Yeah. Now, I can give you I can do an example on the other side of movies that were, and I'm not going to say that the movie was brilliant and all that, but it made me enjoy the book more, is Watchmen. Now, Watchmen, that is a debatable movie in the entire geek world. I mean, people love it or they hate it. I liked it a lot. I love the book. However, watching the movie made me love the book even more. I think it improved it. I don't think it improved the end, but I think that the story was very well fleshed out, and it gave me a little bit more inspiration when I read.
I think that's a good one because the characters, I think, as far as the Watchmen, the movie goes, the way that they casted it and the way that the characters portrayed those, or way the actors portrayed those characters really brought them to life. So I can definitely see why that would make you appreciate and enjoy reading the book again, because sometimes and I can say for like even like things like Harry Potter, if you really enjoy the movie, when you go back and read the book, you can picture those people as those characters as you're reading the book again. So it really can definitely help the other direction of appreciating the adaptation, whatever it's been adapted from, better.
Adaptated. That's a good word. You're absolutely right, especially considering The Watchmen. The characters were fleshed out very well in the movie. I'm still on the fence about the movie because 2/3 of the way through, they just veered wildly off the actual story and just ended it any damn way they wanted to, which, whatever.
Is what it is.
But Dub's point that it made the book better for me is spot on. I will read that novel any day, anytime. It's just a superb superb storytelling.
Yep.
Now, going the other way on that, there's a show that I think, and it's not a movie, but I'm going to throw this in. It's a show that is so good that it actually made me enjoy the book a little bit less. From my favorite author of all time, Neil Gaiman.
Can I take a guess on this?
You know what it is. Go ahead.
American Gods. Yeah.
American Gods. I know me and Courtney are going to disagree on this.
No, I only like the first season.
I went back and reread American Gods, and yes, I like that I can picture Shadow a little better, and I can picture Mad Sweeney a little better. But other than that, I like this story so well that it kind of ruined the book. How well they are telling that, and that is so rare, especially for, I mean, as I say, my favorite author of all time. And
the actor they got for Mr. Wednesday is a superb actor.
Oh
too.
my gosh, he's so
well. And I'll say on Todd's point on that, especially with American Gods, for me, just about every single person they cast is how I pictured them in my head.
Well, that's fortunate.
They cast.
That makes the translation from the book to show.
I didn't think
Easter's wrong.
Easter wasn't right based on what I had, the picture I had in my head.
But I like who she was in it though.
Yeah, but I mean, like I thought Orlando Jones
like,
as Mr. Nancy was perfect.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought the casting that they did was really good based on the descriptions that Gaiman gave of all of these characters and these gods, that everybody didn't seem really out of place. And I think that's one of the things, I mean, I don't know if you guys experience this, but I know that that's one of the things that I run into when I read a book first and then I go watch the movie. If they don't match up in my head, I don't have issues, but I will have issues sometimes. Like one that I think of is the Da Vinci Code. So I read the Da Vinci Code and I went and saw the movie. Well, Ian McKellen, God loves Ian McKellen. He's the king of the nerds. We love Gandalf. But in the book, he's this big, gigantic, red-headed Scottish guy. And so when he comes out,
not a wispy English poof,
right? Like he comes out, and I'm like, that is not at all how I saw this character in my head. And so, like as the book reader, as you're watching, and I know a lot of people experience this with Hunger Games because those weren't who people had pictured in their heads either. If they're so wildly different compared to like the physical, like we'll go back to American Gods really fast. The physical description of Easter in the book. She looks like Christina Hendricks from Mad Men.
Mm-hmm.
But instead of the tall, voluptuous redhead, they cast 4'11" blonde Kristen Chenoweth.
Yeah.
So it's like, if there's that massive difference, I think sometimes there's a disconnect for the book reader when you're watching.
A good example of what you're alluding to on that, Courtney, is the entire Harry Potter series of movies. They look exactly
like they were described,
how they're described in the book.
But like what you were saying with the Hunger Games, now I don't know how you can have a description of anybody. I've read those books, and she's not a descriptive writer as far as the characters go. They are whoever it is that you think that they are when it pops in your head.
Not much of a writer, period, but
it is what it is. However, I enjoyed the heck out of the movies.
Yeah, the movies are great. I think it may be because the books weren't as solid of books than the movies were. That's another example of the movie being a bit better than the book because unfortunately the books they almost feel like rehashes of one another, but
Absolutely.
the movies feel more fleshed out.
The
And I
movies
think
understood
you're
subtext.
the movies you're condensing that whole arena time, the whole time that they're in the arena, you're condensing that down, and that works as opposed to
So much
reading
better.
half of a book that's only
Exactly.
that. Yeah.
That series in particular, the first two books are character and plot development, and the third book is 100% politics. And they actually got that right in the movies.
Yeah.
I was fairly impressed with it.
Now,
That's all I got.
let me give you another example of a book that the author hated when they put it on screen, but eventually she did come around. Was Interview with the Vampire. Anne Rice hated Tom Cruise in that role. I can forget about Tom Cruise pretty easy, honestly. I think they did a really good job with that. And she eventually came around and said, this was actually the right choice.
You know what, dude? Lestat in those is supposed to be 6'2" to 6'3", broad-shouldered, blonde, good-looking devil. Tom Cruise? Really?
I don't think it was missing though from the. I think it was just a different adaptation when they were on screen.
Honestly, Brad Pitt would have been a better call for Lestat in that. My personal opinion.
I liked Antonio Banderas, but he was fantastic in that movie.
And she actually loved. Tom Cruise was the only one who she didn't approve of.
Yeah, at all.
Everybody else she approved. I was at a writers' convention. I'm like moderate associates acquaintances with her son Christopher.
Really?
And he'll get drunk and tell stories about how she gets mad. How she got mad about stuff like that. So he's a hoot when he's not drunk, but when he gets drunk, it's like, let me tell you what my mom said. He's a horror writer as well. He writes in the same vein, and he's a good writer. So.
Tom Cruise's Lestat I put in the same category as Michael Keaton as Batman. He got the attitude and the actions right. He's just a much smaller dude than the book describes.
But honestly, it worked because I think a lot of people were introduced to Interview with the Vampire through that, not reading the book.
And Tom Cruise is not a bad actor. He can pull it up if he puts his all into it. I'll give him credit.
I think he did well as Lestat, but I'm with you. I mean, he wasn't what I pictured.
He's not who I picked.
I know that she had said that she wanted someone like Rutger Hauer to be Lestat.
That would have been amazing. But at that point, Rutger Hauer is probably 57, 58 years old.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that was when she first wrote the book in the 70s.
Yeah.
So we had that like whole Lady Hawk. We're talking like Lady Hawk Rutger Hauer.
That might have worked.
Oh, and she could have had Matthew Broderick too. That'd be awesome.
I wasn't saying we're making a vampire version of Lady Hawk, but now that we did,
now that you're thinking about it,
that is property of I Heart Geek. If anybody takes the idea and runs with it.
Wow. She just put a copyright slap on that.
Okay. Now we kind of talked about the movies we like and all that other stuff. Now let's discuss what elements, if you read a book, what elements have to be in it, in your opinion, for you to enjoy watching the movie. You read a book and you love it. What elements have to be right? This is for everybody. So let's start with Todd on that one.
Well, plot is important, of course. What I refer to as the main thrust of each book, which is, for example, Interview with a Vampire. The main thrust there is there are vampires. They're not necessarily horrible. They just are struggling to survive, blah, blah, blah. Okay, if you can keep the main thrust going and the linearity of the point of the novel, that's what was so disappointing to me about the Watchmen movie.
Mm-hmm.
The story was great. They were doing fantastic. And then 2/3 of the way through it, somebody just took a wild left turn and drove them off the cliff. I don't know.
So basically, you want the timeline has to be the same for you. That's the big one for you.
Yeah, the storyline should be at least similar to the book that it's based on, or else for me it's just a car wreck.
Blythe?
It's so hard because I agree 100% with Todd, but when I go into a movie that I have read the book for, I usually try to go in not having too high of expectations, even if I've read the book, because
Hope for the best, expect the worst.
yeah. Because I understand that it's hard unless you're willing to create like a 3-movie arc. It's really hard to adapt a book to film and do it justice. I would have loved for Ready Player One to maybe have been a second movie, only because
the second book.
Only because there's so many like deeper gamer elements that I would have loved to seen them flesh out in that movie. So I think for me, the number one thing would probably be the characters themselves. I don't like seeing, so I can get if they're trying to adapt a plot and they have to make changes due to time constraints, but if they completely annihilate a character just to do it, like I feel like that should definitely, that should be definitely a basic thing, is to at least keep your characters consistent to how they are in the book.
A great example of that is Courtney's description of Easter from the show.
What about you, Courtney?
I kind of agree with the guys on this. Like one thing I was thinking about is like Jurassic Park. There's so much in that book that they couldn't put into the movie. The movie is still a great movie. But I mean, you're like watching it going, well, I wonder why they didn't put this part in, or I wonder why they didn't put this part in. And then you just kind of have to realize that they just, like Blythe said, that there's just not enough time a lot of times. And I mean, sometimes they have to condense characters down. So you might have like 10 characters in a novel that become one in a movie. So, I mean, it's kind of hard to.
That's a great example. Most Michael Crichton novels suffer that when they go into the movies, because he's so factually on the ball, and there's just a lot that can't go in. Some of the coding Warrior. From some of the computer coding that was written into Jurassic Park the book. There's no way they can represent that.
The Raptors, they do exponentially so much more in the book than they even do in the movie. But I mean, I get it, because you can't put everything in there. And so I think that's probably, I guess I'm like Blythe, I go in and I don't expect to see everything that's in the book on the screen. But like Todd, I wanted to follow the plot and the characters, because I don't know how many times you guys have gone in and you've read a book and you've walked into the movie or watched the TV show, and it's literally just a movie or a TV show that has the same name as the book you just read.
Like Joker?
Well, that they said from the beginning that Joker was not the comic book movie that everyone thought, or thought that they were getting. They knew what it was doing. But a good example of that is World War Z.
Oh,
that book is a completely different, just a completely different like storytelling in general.
And I liked the movie.
Yeah.
But it is not the book at all.
Entertaining, but it has nothing to do at all with the book, except there's zombies in it.
Yeah.
It's like practical magic. The characters are the same names, and they're all witches. That's about the extent of what's the same.
And don't even get me started with the Twilight series.
The books were crap too. You can't really.
Here's the consistency.
No, I'm not going to admit to it anyway.
But he did run out of toilet paper once, so there's half a book in his bathroom.
And you guys have seen my bathroom before. You know it's probably true. Now, what I think is the most important thing, and this is going to sound like a cop-out answer, but it's the heart of the story has to be right.
What a cop-out.
Like, for instance, Preacher, one of my top 5 graphic novels of all time.
And they're sitting on my shelf.
I know. They did not get the heart.
Show.
They didn't get the heart of the characters right. They didn't get the heart of the story right. The main character, instead of being who he was, they created as something that is unrecognizable. And that's where, if they would have the heart of the character, I can handle the story being changed. I can't handle the characters. The reason why I'm on this journey and stay on this journey, I can't stand them to be changed. Physical differences, I get it. I'll live.
That entire video series was a huge pile of Tyrannosaurus Rex poo-poo. Dude, it was just...
Speaking of Jurassic Park.
Sticking with the Jurassic Park theme, I see.
Consistency, right?
Do you guys think that now that we have evolved the entertainment medium into streaming services and those streaming services creating their own shows, that books are more properly adapted to a show instead of a movie? Would you prefer to see your favorite books made into a show than a movie?
Well, yeah, I like what the Boys did at American Gods. I'm seeing what they can do with the more fleshed out versions, that I'm starting to prefer the shows, and especially since we can cuss on TV now and all that other stuff.
Well, actually, I don't have a particular preference as to whether it goes movie or series. The series would give it a lot more leeway on time constraints, so they wouldn't have to contract everything into a wee little amount of time. But they can do that in movies as well with correct cinematography and just staying with the point. So as long as they keep true to the story, doesn't matter to me which one they do.
Fair enough. So let's jump from there and let's hit our listener feedback.
And now, let's see what all of our geek rock stars have to say.
Okay, Courtney, we got listener feedback. What you got for us?
We got lots of listener feedback. So again, if you don't get right on the air, don't worry about it. Keep trying, because I only got a short period of time, and if I go over, Dub gets cranky. So our question was, what is your favorite movie that was originally a book, and why? So our good friend Dean O'Gangle at the podcast says The Ratman's Notebook by Stephen Gilbert. Both in the 70s and the 200s, Willard were very good movies. Though he said he enjoyed the 70s with Bruce Davidson and Ernest Borgnine. Why? More. It's been a long morning. Sorry, guys. Justin McLean says Jaws. Even though he hasn't read the book, he says Jaws. It's a phenomenally flawless film, although he heard that it stinks. But he also likes Cell and Pride and Prejudice and Zombies. Really? Really, Justin?
That's quite a spread.
That's different.
All over the place. David Squire says The Lord of the Rings. It was his favorite story since 7th grade, and the movies took artistic license in all the right places. The cinematography and locations were great, casting was perfect, and the acting was amazing. And he says the music still has a place in his rotation. Stephen Fitzmaurice says David Lynch's version of Dune. The book was great, but it gets very long and it's very detailed, which at times take away from the incredible story being told. Mm-hmm. David Lynch captured Dune for him in all the details and character insights. And Mr. Winchester.
Hey, Mr. Winchester.
Mr. Winchester.
He says he's going to give 2 and one that was turned into a TV show. One was The Green Mile, and one is The Strand by Guillermo del Toro. The one that is a movie was The Exorcist. First and foremost, and hands down, it's the best book he's read that was adapted. Being able to pull up all the special effects they needed in 1973 to coincide with the craziness of the book was nothing short of amazing. And that's what we have for listener feedback. And thank you to everybody who left feedback, even if I didn't read it on air.
We appreciate it, guys. Thank you.
I would like to bring up 2 things that these listeners have brought up to light. One being they mentioned Pride, Prejudice, and Zombies, which I can't believe we did not bring up Abraham Lincoln, Vampire Hunter. I can't believe we didn't bring up. The book is fantastic. The movie is garbage. And another thing too that we don't really touch on. Sometimes a movie makes the book better just because it consolidates the time. I think Lord of the Rings did a really good job of that, because those books are, as much as people love them and as great as
they're tough to eat. Yeah.
They are huge pills to swallow. But the movies are great, and I think the movies do the books justice. And I think that was a very good point that they touched on.
That is a fantastic call. So thank you everybody for doing your listener feedback. By the way, hit the subscribe and like since you're there anyway. Yeah. Well,
I'd like to bring up one book to movie transition that I've always thought was just a terrible, terrible disaster. Mary Shelley's Frankenstein.
Oh.
The book depicted the monster as a thinking. Huh? No, the original.
The original.
Boris Karloff.
With Boris Karloff? Okay.
Yeah, the book depicted the monster as a sensitive, highly intelligent being who just happens to have a monstrous form. How they made him out in damn near every movie they've ever made about Frankenstein, with the exception of the De Niro one, which was actually very spot on to the book. I just thought it was a tragic mistelling of a great tale.
Yeah.
That's all I got.
Very good.
That's a great book.
Okay. Now we're going to jump on to our main event so we can talk about these stuff now.
The main event. Kidding.
Now it's time for the main event.
So on this version of the main event, we are talking our top 5 favorite movies that used to be books. We don't necessarily have to like the book, but I think I think we all like the books.
Might help.
Yeah. So I will start with mine. And my number 5 was a fantastic movie / book that is a mind twist, is the only edited way I can say that. Clockwork Orange. This is one of those, you watch it in high school because that's the only time in your life that you're malleable enough to kind of grasp what's going on and not be completely disgusted by everything. Fantastic story. Looking back, there's a lot of things that are incorrect, I would say, but honestly, it made such an impact on my life. That's why. And I did watch the movie first.
And they filmed it in all its brutal, gory detail. They did a very good job with the continuity, switching it from pages to screen. I agree with you fully. It was a great movie.
Okay, let's go with Bly's.
You are on mute.
You did.
My number 5, and this one's not going to be a big surprise, but it is the Harry Potter series. All those movies are just great. I think after the 3rd movie, they really hit the niche of what they were going for as far as the films. But yeah, definitely I think that would make the list on anyone's.
Yeah.
Good call.
Todd, your number 5, sir?
My number 5 was an animated film done some time ago called How the Grinch Stole Christmas. It's kind of hard to beat Dr. Seuss for storytelling capabilities, and they actually got the film dead on to the storyline.
And we're not talking Jim Carrey version.
Oh God, no. Oh, geez, no.
That's terrible. Yeah.
No, the one with the songs and everybody knows what I'm talking about on this one. Yeah. Exactly right. And it has stood the test of time. People still enjoy watching it around Christmas and whatnot. So there's my number 5.
Nice. Courtney?
The Maltese Falcon.
Tell me about this. I've heard about this my whole life. I've never seen it.
It's been made several times, but it's
Bogey, wasn't it?
Bogey was the best one. There's actually 3 versions. There's one they're both in the 30s. There's one in 31, and then the 39 version is Bogey, which is the best. And then there was a version that was called Satan Was a Lady. That was like at the very beginning of filmmaking. But It's the stuff that dreams were made of, and it's what gave us Sam Spade, our intrepid, one of the iconic detective characters, Gumshoe characters.
Gumshoe,
that
yes.
The Archer characters based on in the 19 version series of the Archer cartoon. Yeah, loosely when he's in there. But yeah, it's all about they're trying to find this priceless statue of a Maltese falcon that's got jewels in it, and it's all the intrigue and everything that goes on. And the book is wonderful. And if you watch the movie, watch the Bogey version. It's so good. Yes, there's differences, but they're both amazing.
Very good. Okay, number 4, and my number 4 goes to a who is Tyler Durden, and that would be Fight Club. Both, I think it's ironic that they made the movie being so good because the movie is everything that the book was trying to rail against, commercialism and all that. And so what do? They make $1 billion on commercialism with making a movie about anti-commercialism. With
the American way, baby.
It's such a fantastic story, and it's watching someone's whirlwind into madness and then back up.
Psychosis.
Do you think that movie they ever planned on it to be as big as it became?
No. Who was it? David Fincher, I believe.
Honestly, between the star power of Ed Norton and Brad Pitt, how could they think that it wouldn't just blow up?
And Jared Leto. I wanted to destroy something beautiful. Such a great line.
You just broke Todd's
heart. Nice. Blythe?
My number 4 is the Maze Runner series. I really enjoyed those movies. Yeah, I think
I made it through about 2 of them.
I think I liked the whole thing. I liked how the way that the way the story starts is a lot different than how you think that whole story is going to play out, with like the desolate world and the infection and all that kind of, like, it turns into almost like a zombie movie from what it starts out to be. So I enjoyed going through that.
I enjoyed those books immensely. I thought the lead character in the movies, for being their kind of leader, I thought he had just amazing capabilities of making the wrong decisions.
I could see that for sure.
That was my only critique of it. Other than that, they were pretty enjoyable films.
Yeah, and I think that the last one too may have been a little bit have fallen off a little bit for some people, because it didn't come out until like 5 or 6 years after the second one, because Dylan O'Brien got hurt on another film.
Oh, that's
what fell off of a motorcycle and got hurt for a while.
Nice. Todd, what is your number 3, bud?
Well, this one's going to be a little controversial.
Number 4.
My number 4 movie is Romeo and Juliet, the one that was filmed in the 90s with John Leguizamo. I know
I've never
Courtney's
heard him being the lead, but okay.
He wasn't the lead, but he was the biggest name in it. Claire Danes, I think.
Leonardo DiCaprio, that tiny one.
Yeah, but at the time he was a kid. But it's this story of Romeo and Juliet, of course, but it's based in 90s like Miami gangland, but all of the lines are done in the original Shakespearean prose. It made for a very different viewing experience, and a lot of people couldn't choke down all the funny words, but but the acting was excellent, and I just thought the entire concept of doing the original prose with modern cinematography was just a really good idea.
Very good. Courtney?
My number 4 is Man of La Mancha, but it's the musical version.
Okay.
But of course.
So it's based on the book Man of La Mancha by Miguel Cervantes. And like there is a movie version of the musical. It's got Peter O'Toole, I know, and Sophia Loren in it. The movie's good. The musical itself that the movie's based on is even better.
Nice.
But it's your Don Quixote story.
Outstanding. Now, we got to do something a little off the kilter a little bit. Blythe, I want you to read your last 3 because I know you have something really important you got to run to right now so that we can keep recording. So if you can run off your last 3 for us real quick?
For sure, man. I appreciate you guys for understanding, and I appreciate you, our Geek Rock Stars. My number 3 is Ready Player One, for reasons we kind of went into earlier. Just a great adaptation of a book without doing too much away from the source material. And just a fun universe. Just a fun universe to make a book and a movie about. My number 2 is Jurassic Park. I am in the same boat. I believe you mentioned a friend of yours, Courtney. I have never read the book, or maybe that was our listener feedback. One of our listeners said that they enjoyed the movie and never read the book. I've never read the book. I've always heard that the book is phenomenal. But you'd be hard pressed to find anyone who doesn't love that movie.
Mm-hmm.
And then my number
technical. Yeah.
My number 1 is Matt Damon's The Martian. That book is phenomenal. The movie is phenomenal. I've actually watched and read a bunch of articles from different scientists who say like the science in that book and movie is spot on. Like everything that he does is just
what he should have done.
Yeah, exactly. What he should have done. You could perform it in a real life scenario and would have gotten the same results. It's just such a great movie. Like that's a movie that's long and I can watch it over and over and over again. I love it. So
absolutely.
Good. Yeah. All right, guys. Well, I'm out of here. I appreciate all of our Geek Rock Stars. I love you guys. Keep on geeking on.
Okay.
Later,
See you later, bud. Okay, so I guess we will trudge along. So I can start with my number 3, and to no one's surprise, one of the best comic book movie adaptations into film is Scott Pilgrim versus the World.
What did you say, Todd?
Green Lantern?
No. Stop that. You're hurting my feelings a little bit. But the way they did bring the comic book elements to that movie was just fantastic. I mean, it's not a super action-packed. I mean, there's action in it, but it's a story-driven movie, and they did a really good job about it without having to go.
And that quirky kid that did the main character,
Sarah,
killed it.
Yeah, and I've never been a fan of him, but he did a great job in that one.
I especially liked it when he wins fights, all the coins that hit the ground.
Hey, there's like $2.43. Yeah.
How comic book geeky is that?
Exactly. It's everything. It's like a throwback to, we talked Ready Player One. It's kind of that same kind of feeling before Ready Player One happened.
I agreed.
Todd, your number 3, sir?
My number 3 is a book that's, it's not as old as Shakespeare, say, but my number 3 is Shogun. I believe that's James Clavell.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways,
that was a series growing up.
Yeah,
it was a huge multi-hour movie with Richard Chamberlain as the main character. The story is basically feudal Japan in the, I believe, late 1800s.
Mm-hmm.
And a pilot who is essentially the navigator of the old Trimaster ships got shipwrecked in Japan. And he was, the people in Japan are all pretty uniformly 5'6" and dark hair. And he is this 6 foot tall, light skinned barbarian with beard and mustache and everything. And it's a sweeping story about how he gets himself into Japanese society, which is very feudal. It has the, samurai swords and kimonos.
Yeah, lots of that.
It's very interesting look at the previous Japanese societal norms and how different they are from the Western. So it's a great book. They made it into a fantastic movie. That's what I got.
Outstanding. Courtney?
My number 3 is Little Women. And I really like the 1980s version with like Winona Ryder and Claire Danes and
really?
Susan Sarandon. Yeah.
Okay.
That's my favorite version of that. I watched it at Christmas time.
Chick flick?
I watch it at Christmas time because it's one of those things where it takes place at Christmas. Part of it, it's not a Christmas movie, but it feels like it should be a Christmas movie.
Mm-hmm.
But I've read I've read the book 1,000 times by Louise May Alcott, and every female writer out there imagines that she's a little bit of Jo. So when I was a kid, I was very Jo-ish.
Nice.
So there's that.
Very good. So my number 2 is also kind of a chick flick. It's not, but it's honestly, this was the first musical that I ever liked, and that was Wizard of Oz, because that's the first movie.
Chick flick.
I'm just saying that's the first musical that most of us are exposed to as children. Just watching it when it goes from black and white to color, and just it is still
that was a huge
amazing
thing in that day and age too.
Yeah, and the munchkin, the swinging from the tree. No, that's not really there. That's just but I don't have to talk about this one. Everyone's seen this, and the book is very different. They're very small books, and there's like 20 of them. It's a whole series. And
if you want
L. Frank Baum.
Yeah.
Now, if you want to dig into the history of it and what they should be doing with some of these backstories, you go through those books, because it's a really
like 20 of them.
Yeah, and they're real. They're an hour read. It's pretty simple reading, but because they're children's books,
right? But
they're still very well fleshed out. And I have to say this is really cool. When the wizard bought his coat, he wanted something kind of ratty, but not too ratty. He went and bought a jacket himself from the Goodwill. And when he was wearing it on set, he looked in the pocket, and it had a letter from L. Frank Baum.
Oh my God.
I thought that was a very interesting.
That was such a cool piece of trivia.
Yeah, that's cool.
Nice. You don't believe it, but yeah, you look so skeptical right now, Courtney, but that's okay. Todd, what is your number 2?
I had heard that before, but that doesn't mean it's not true. So.
All right, are we on number 2?
Number 2.
Okay, The Shawshank Redemption. The book was more detailed than the movie was, but the movie was exceptional in presenting every single one of the main character points and plot thrusts that the book had. And of course, Timothy Hutton, Jesus, what a stellar performance. And it never hurts. I mean, they made little changes. His best friend, Red,
was an Irish guy.
He was an Irish guy with red hair in the book.
Yeah.
He was a black guy in the movie, but
the way they did that joke was hilarious.
Yeah.
It was a callback.
And it was extraordinarily casted. It was extraordinarily acted. Every single one of those actors got the point of the story.
Yeah.
Which is hope and human dignity.
Name a more beautiful scene than when he locks himself in the warden's office and plays opera.
Yeah.
For the prison yard.
The PA.
Or when they're sitting on top of the roof that they just finished charring, and they're just sitting there having a beer. Those scenes are so perfect.
Yeah. And again, both of those scenes highlight Andy Dufresne's innermost thought.
Uncrushable spirit.
Giving hope and keeping the spirit alive is the most important thing.
Yeah.
He knew he was going to get his butt kicked for that record stunt, and he did it anyways.
And when he fought the other unpleasantness, he knew it was going to get a whole lot worse, but he still fought.
Yep, exactly right. Anyways, that's why I made my number 2.
Very good. Courtney?
My number 2 is Devil in the Blue Dress. It stars Denzel Washington.
That was one of the first big ones, wasn't it?
Yeah. It's based on a novel of the same name, which is actually a series of novels by Walter Mosley. And it's about a detective he becomes a detective. Easy Rawlins, who is played by Denzel Washington. And this is the first in the series. And it was supposed to be the first of a series of movies based on the books, but it didn't do well in the box office, and I don't know why. But what makes it so, the book is wonderful, and all the books are, but what I really like about it is it turns that noir detective and it flips the script, because up until that point, there had never been, before the Easy Rawlins novels had come out, there had never been a noir detective in the 40s, 50s of color.
Yeah.
So it's Los Angeles from that side of the fence, as opposed to, say, the Maltese Falcon or the Big Sleep. And
the book does an excellent job of noting and highlighting the differences in culture from a Black perspective.
Yeah.
So, and there was a big difference. I mean, they treated people differently back then.
Yeah.
And I thought Denzel did a hell of a representation.
He was such a great Easy Rawlins. I feel like we were robbed of all of the rest of him that he could have, the journey. Because there's about 11 or 12 Easy Rawlins novels, but at the time there was 5. So we could have had more Easy Rawlins novels.
The full set.
Yeah, it would have been so good. And his I agree with you, Todd. His Easy is just spot on, perfect to the book.
It's nice. Like it was literally written for specifically for him.
Exactly. I agree.
Outstanding. So my number 1 is The Princess Bride. If you have any questions why, go back 2 months ago and listen to the episode that we did on The Princess Bride. What about you, Todd?
That was a deep dip episode too. My number 1 is pretty obvious for why, but Forrest Gump. There's so many reasons to like the film and so few not to. Personally, I'm not a huge fan of Tom Hanks, the man, but his representation of Forrest Gump was absolutely straight out of the book, and he dove into it feet first. I loved every aspect of the film, and again, it was a positive thrust film.
Very good.
Agreed.
Courtney, your number 1?
My number 1 is LA Confidential. I love the book. I love the movie.
And why you love it is confidential, so.
Yeah. Well, I think I've talked about it before, so I don't even need to go into it. It's my favorite movie, so.
For a period piece, they did a really exceptional job of the cinematography.
It is almost perfect. You try to find anachronisms in it. This is, I think at one point in time, there's one car that is 2 years off.
Right.
Other than that, there's nothing else. The costumes are perfect. The set is perfect.
And if you're the one that noticed that car, you're a jerk, because just watch the stinking movie.
My favorite. You're a jerk. I think it's probably my favorite movie. Nice. And I mean, it's what Todd talked about earlier, and we talked about earlier. The book is a behemoth.
Yeah.
It is a brick of a novel, and they couldn't even put 1/3 of what's in the novel into that 2.5-hour movie. But
unless
you want a
15-hour movie. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they'd have to. I know they were going to make a TV series, but it didn't ever get off the ground. They shot a pilot just recently with yeah. I mean, I don't think they could top the film at all. So
nice.
That's it.
Well, that is a show, ladies and gentlemen. I apologize for all the technical issues that you guys have seen us bouncing around and pictures changing, all that other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
We just wanted to keep everybody on their toes.
I'll refund your money for this episode. Check out the website, www.iheartgeekshow.com. It's brand new and it's awesome. Do our Patreon, where there's going to be a lot of new content coming on. You're going to see a little of that coming this week. Like, subscribe, do all that stuff, and we appreciate every one of you. And I'm Dub, and I'm here with Todd. I'm here with Courtney and the aforementioned Blythe. Keep on geeking on, kids.
You have been listening to the latest episode of the I Heart Geek Show. Make sure you visit our website at www.iheartgeekshow.com. Make sure to follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. And if you check us out on YouTube, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And keep on geeking on to all of you geek rock stars.